Right. Let's talk about something that just dropped on February 10th, 2025, a new executive order that could really shake things up in the world of international business. We're going to do a complete breakdown of what this thing actually says straight from the source. So, first things first, what's the official title? It's Executive Order 14209. And the name pretty much tells you the whole story. Pausing Foreign Corrupt Practices Act enforcement to further American economic and national security. It lays it all out right there, a pause on a specific law, all to help the U.S. economy and national security. So that begs the question, what is that law? Well, that law is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. You've probably heard it called the FCPA. This thing has been around for a long time, since 1977, actually. And its whole job, its main purpose, is to stop American companies and people from, bribing foreign officials to get a business deal. For decades, this has been a huge, huge part of anti-corruption efforts.
Okay, so now that we've got that background, let's dive into what this new executive order actually does. What's the main action here?
And this is the key thing to understand. The order doesn't get rid of the FCPA altogether. It's not repealed. Instead, it's kind of like hitting the pause button on enforcing it. And the whole reason for this pause? It's to kick off a big review of how the law has been used over the years and, well, figure out if it needs to be changed. Okay, so that's the what of the situation. But what about the why? Why do this now? The executive order itself actually gives a pretty detailed explanation. And let me tell you, the language in the order does not mess around. It's super direct. It says, and I'm quoting here, that the FCPA has been stretched beyond proper bounds and abused. Wow. So right away, that sets the tone, right? It's building a case that the law, as it's being used today, is actually doing more harm than good. And then it gets to the absolute core of its argument. It connects the dots, saying that the current enforcement actively harms American economic competitiveness and therefore national security. So it's making this direct line from enforcing an anti-bribery law to hurting the U.S. economy and even threatening national security. That's a pretty bold claim. The order then unpacks that big idea into a few specific points. It says enforcement is 1. Putting up roadblocks for U.S. companies. 2, it's a waste of government lawyers' time and money. And 3, and this one is really interesting, it says it penalizes what it calls routine business practices in other countries. Now, that phrase alone is a whole can of worms, for sure. But the big picture here, the story the order is telling is that this law is actually holding American companies back when they're trying to compete globally. All right, so if that's the problem they're trying to solve, what's the solution? How does the order actually plan to fix it? Well, the whole thing hinges on a specific review period with some very, very clear instructions. The clock starts with 180 days. Yep, 6 months. During that time, the Attorney General is given one major job: do a complete, top-to-bottom review of every single guideline and policy connected to the FCPA. And they've built in a little wiggle room, too. If that's not enough time, the Attorney General can extend the review for another 180 days. So this whole thing could potentially last for a full year. So what's on the Attorney General's to-do list during this review period? It really boils down to 3 things. First, they have to stop starting any new FCPA investigations, unless it's a really special case. Second, they need to go through all the investigations that are already happening and figure out what to do with them. And third, and this is the big one, the main goal, come up with and release a totally new set of rules for how the FCPA will be enforced from now on. Which brings us to the really crucial question, right? What happens after the review is over? Well, the order lays out a whole new permanent system for how the FCPA is going to be handled from here on out. This new system basically has 3 main pillars. First, from now on, any FCPA action has to play by the new rules, no exceptions. Second, and listen to this because this is a huge change, it really centralizes power. Any new investigation must be personally signed off on by the Attorney General. And third, the AG is also told to look back at old cases to see if anything needs to be done about what the order calls inappropriate past investigations. So when you put it all together, the new rules, the requirement for the AG's personal approval, what's the end goal? According to the order, it's all about shifting FCPA enforcement so that it puts American interests, both economic and national security, first and foremost. And there you have it. That's the breakdown of Executive Order 14209 straight from the text. I mean, it's a pretty big deal, right?
It's hitting pause on a law that's been around for almost 50 years, an anti-bribery law, to basically rewrite the playbook, all for the sake of economic competitiveness. So that really leaves us with one big question to think about. What does a shift like this actually mean for how business gets done around the world?